like people that they do echolocation, like clicking, and they listen for how the sound comes off. And it's the visual cortex of their brain that's taking that in and giving them a picture. It's not like a picture like us seeing a picture, but it gives them a picture of their world, of what's in their world. So there was a guy that had his corneas were completely clouded. He was blind. So when he and this was for years, and so there a surgery came available that could replace his corneas, and he would be able to see. So so a miracle, right? So they replace his corneas, and they unveil it. He opens his eyes, and he's like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, doesn't know what to do with this information because there's no place to put this information. He's never seen anything before. He doesn't know what color is. He doesn't know all of this. And so he has to learn over time. And he said it was really freaky when when they were driving on the freeway, things coming at him, and he's like ducking like these signs that are coming right at him. They're going to hit him. He's like, he doesn't know what to do with this information. He thinks it's all really weird. Can you imagine that? Anyway, the brain is completely plastic. Like you can move it around and do things and take out parts of it. And I remember when I was working in pathology, there was a neurosurgeon sent down. He said, "I think I've got a tumor here, and I'm not sure what it is." And the pathologist said, "Okay, send us a piece of it." Because they're up in the operating room upstairs. We're down in the basement of the hospital, in pathology, looking under microscopes at everything. So the surgeon sends down a piece of the brain, and it was like a 1-inch square, like, and the pathologist like, heck, all we needed was a microscopic piece of brain. He sends him this whole chunk of brain. It was really funny.
Oh my gosh.
And it turned out to be nothing. But anyway, the brain is really plastic. It's like, but as time goes on, less and less so. It gets more cartoon. So, okay, here's the key. How do you keep your brain young? This is a real thing. You keep your brain young by surprising it. Surprise it. Surprise it every day. Brush your teeth with your left hand instead of your right hand. Go running instead of riding a bike. Get out of your routine in any way you can. He said it's as simple as, like, you have a routine for drying yourself off with a towel after a shower. Go the other way, dry from the bottom up, or something like that. Learn a new language. What else? Take up a musical instrument. These are great ways to surprise your brain and start learning, because as you're learning and discovering new things, you release something called acetylcholine. And that acetylcholine is what's telling a child's brain when they make a discovery and go, aha, that's the way the world works. That aha experience is acetylcholine being released into their brain. Acetylcholine is memory, learning, focus. So all of the ability to focus and learn and memory is an aha experience. So when you go to school, children who go to school and sit through a class for the teacher, have you ever seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Anyone, blah, 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 blah. Anyone. That kind of teacher, nobody's going to learn a thing in his class. You have to have a class of discovery where the kids are going, oh my gosh, really? That's how it works? And then their brain is ready to learn because they'll release acetylcholine with that aha experience. Isn't that
Yes, that's good. That's good. I actually have been thinking a lot about that. I mean, even the first thing you mentioned, just about brushing your teeth with your other hand, that's not easy to do, guys.
I know, I tried yesterday.
Yeah. So try some of these things. They're such little things. Like, even if you are someone, I don't know, maybe you play sports with your kids, or you play around outside, instead of shooting right-handed, shoot left-handed, or doing some of those different things. It's so good. It's awkward, but it's so good for you. So I love it. I want to dig into the ketogenic diet today. I'm excited about this because I feel like it's perfect timing, beginning of the year, when a lot of people are really, you know what? I better change my view. There we go. Sorry, it's blurry. Uh, but a lot of people are wanting to reset at the beginning of the year, and so it's a good time to talk through some of this. As many of you know, if you've been around for a while, we talk about the ketogenic quite a bit in the diabetes solution kit, or maybe you didn't even realize that it was the ketogenic diet. And there are some things that we have modified a little bit, but Dr. Saunders is well versed in this diet. He's well versed in a lot of different diets, but this is primarily what you recommend to most people to get started in their type 2 diabetes reversal journey. And why is this so important, Dr. Saunders?
Why is the diet important?
Yeah, why this
Um,
one?
because um, the reason somebody has type 2 diabetes is because the blood sugar has filled up, or the blood sugar has come into the cells, and sugar has filled up the cells to the point of they can't take in anymore. So they block insulin receptors, and that makes you insulin resistant. And so now your cell is full of sugar, and you can't bring in anymore. So what's going to happen if you eat sugar and your cells can't bring in it? Well, your blood sugar is going to go up, and it's going to stay up. And every time you eat, it's going to go up. And in the morning, you're fasting. You haven't eaten anything. In the morning, it's going to go up. Why? Well, because you release a bunch of cortisol. The cortisol makes you resistant to insulin, makes you have glucagon. Glucagon tells your liver to make more sugar. You don't have to eat it. Your blood sugar will go up because your cells are just too full. So unless you stop eating sugar, it's not going to work. There are so many. I went to a longevity conference last month, and it was very interesting to see how everybody's marketing their thing, right? And they say, you can cure diabetes with this little pill that has, I don't know, this in it or that in it, or, some special nutrient or some miracle drug or whatever it is. But how are you going to decrease this cell filled up with sugar? How are you going to get the sugar out of the cell? And you're still eating sugar? What? How is taking a pill going to help that? It's not going to work. So the only thing that works is by not or by using up all of the glucose that's in those cells, and so that they open up and they're able to bring glucose in again. And one of the things to do is, if you're not eating glucose, then the cells can start using what they have.
So, talk to us a little bit about that. What is glucose? As you jump into this, I had this conversation with my husband today, and he said, hopefully he's okay with me sharing this. He feels like the older he gets, the worse his sugar cravings have gotten. And so he just knows, like, he can't even have it around, or he will eat it like an addict. So when you say glucose, it's not just sugar, though. We're not talking candy like Skittles and Starburst, or that. What else are we talking about? What else has glucose?
Okay, so yeah, glucose is starch. So potatoes, rice, corn, wheat, bread, pasta. So a lot of people don't think of pasta as sugar, unless you're watching Elf. We
Oh,
always watch Elf
so do
every,
we.
and so Elf makes spaghetti and puts syrup on it, because that's one of the 4 food groups. And so, but spaghetti, pasta has its own glucose. It's almost pure glucose, as well as potatoes and rice and corn, and sugar and breads and cereals of all kinds. In fact, I think if you have diabetes, there's like the 2 worst things you can have are ice cream and cold cereal. And I don't know why it is, but those seem just to be the absolute worst. And I think ice cream is because it has the fat that makes you resistant to insulin and the sugar that raises your sugar level. So you have, it's a double whammy kind of thing. And cold cereal is also a double win. So those are kind of the worst things. So you often don't think of some things, especially somebody asked me yesterday, what, I can't have pasta? And I'm like, no, pasta's got a lot of glucose in it. And he goes, what? Why? And I said, starch. Starch is glucose. He goes, oh, everything with starch? Yeah. Potatoes? Yeah. Sweet potatoes? Yeah. It's like, oh, because a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So, tell us if you're on watching this here on Zoom, tell us in the chat, are you eating a ketogenic style diet right now? And let's talk a little bit about what that means for us when we talk about the diabetes solution kit. Here, let me show you that. Here's our diabetes solution kit. And I promise it's a more beautiful blue than what my screen is probably showing you. My camera is terrible on my
That's
laptop.
pretty close.
Okay. I don't know how it's coming through for you guys, but in our version of this, there are different phases of this diet. And so you start off with phase one. Tell us why we have restricted the carbs to 20 net grams, and what does net grams mean?
Okay. So first of all, net grams. So net carbohydrates means the ones that actually have starch, that are actually made into glucose, that can actually fill up your cells with sugar, with glucose, right? So you want to be able to empty that out. So there are other kinds of carbohydrates that do not contribute. Yes, they're made of glucose. They're long starch molecules, but we can't use them for sugar. We can't break them down. We call it fiber. And so if you have something like cellulose, cellulose fiber is what cardboard is made out of. You can eat all the cardboard you want. It's not going to do anything. You can eat all the wood chips you want. That's not going to help you at all. You're not going to get any sugar, glucose out of eating grass like a horse, right? The horse has extra stomachs to digest these kinds of starches, or what we call fiber, into glucose, and then they actually use that for energy. We can't do that. So because we can't digest those, then we take those out of the carbs. So you have a total carbohydrate, which includes the fiber. Then you remove the fiber out, and you have just the stuff that's actually the sugar. That's the actual glucose that fills up your cells. So that's what net carbs is. You take total carbohydrates, subtract fiber, and you have just the glucose. So when I was doing a ketogenic diet, so I did this diabetes solution kit. I did it for 3 months. I don't have diabetes, but somebody told me I should try it, so I did. So I can look on a label, and every label has total carbs, and it would be like 15 carbs, and then total fiber, 10 grams of fiber. So net carbs is 5 grams. So, and I allowed myself up to 4 grams. So anything up to 4 grams was enough. I would allow in, because I'm limiting to 20, and I can have 5 servings of something with 4 grams. And so I could even have something like, well, a slice of bread would be 20 grams. Avocados had 0 grams. I'm trying to think of, it was nuts, like almonds, for example. I could have a handful of almonds, like even a half a cup of almonds is like 4 net carbs. But if you look at total carbs, it's like 15, but there's 4 net carbs, something like that. So anyway, that's net carbs. Okay, so why only 20 grams? Because 20 grams is not enough for you to run your body on every day. So it's having insufficient carbs forces your body to start turning to fat, and and number one, it'll start using the stored carbohydrates. So that cell that's just chock full of carbs is gonna start using up that sugar, and that's number one. Number two, then you start burning fat. And we had a question here about does fasting decrease insulin resistance? Absolutely. Fasting is the single best thing you could do for your health. There is no single thing you could do better for your health. And yet, if you ask a medical doctor, they say, "Oh, don't fast. That's bad for you." That's actually the best thing for you. And drugs are not good for you. So you have to be really careful where you're getting your advice from. So the reason for 20 maximum of 20 net carbs a day is because that's what allows you to start using up all the excess stored carbs in your body, so that you can become insulin sensitive again.
Okay, I saw a question come through. Okay, quick question for you. Let me know this in the chat. When I'm talking, can you see me?
Yeah.
Because you can. Well, you
Yeah.
can. I don't know if they can. Let me know because it's not switching. Okay, Gary says yes. Thank you. It normally switches on my laptop. It's not doing that. So, someone is asking about low sugar cereals. Now, I know there are a lot of low carb cereals out there. What are your thoughts about those? Typically, they have
Okay.
higher fiber too.
Yeah. I know the high fiber cereals, they usually put a lot of sugar in high fiber cereals, or they'll use sweeteners in them, and they're often sweet. And you have to be really careful with that kind of stuff, because anything that's processed, anything that comes in a box or a bag, is going to have problems. So you have something like Cheerios, for example. People go, oh, that's a low sugar cereal. There's only like 1 gram of sugar in a serving of Cheerios. That's wonderful. But what they don't tell you is that it has a lot of modified starch, and that kind of starch is not good for you, and it does raise blood sugar, and it's something that human beings should not eat. In fact, animals shouldn't eat it either. And yet, you go to church, and what does everybody have in the little baggies for the kids? They got Cheerios, right? All those little 2-year-olds eating Cheerios to keep them quiet. I don't know. What else would you do? I don't know. But anyway, cold cereals are not a good idea.
I shouldn't say this probably, but in case someday they watch, but there's some people that sit behind us in church and they give their kids like crackers and chips during church. Do you know how loud those are when you're sitting in front of them? And it takes everything in me to not say something. It's a big enough church where we can move, but I'm just like, oh, anything else. So it just reminded me of that. I feel like a lot of times when we first get started on, say, phase 1 of the diabetes solution kit, it feels really restrictive. And we're like, okay, I want to replace all the things that I'm used to eating and I want to make this easier. If you can just get through a few days of the hard, just doing this, eating real foods, eating the foods that are recommended here, and not worry about trying to replace it. Like, okay, I need something else sweet to drink if I can't have this, or I need something else to do that. If you can get through a few days at first, I think you'll be in a lot better position. I think it's just hard, because you're so used to a certain way of doing things. Kind of like fasting, even.
Well, let's go back to the ketogenic diet. I mean,
Yeah.
that whole idea is, instead of focusing on how much sugar you're eating or whatever, if you focus on what you can eat, that makes it really easy. So when I first started the keto diet, instead of saying, okay, I love granola, I love cold cereal, oh my gosh, and so I'm looking for a replacement for granola. So Costco has a new trail blueberry cinnamon nut granola, and I'm like, oh, I'm all over that. And then I look on the label. It has sweeteners in it. It's 2 grams of carbohydrates. Is high in fiber, but still, it's something that's processed. So instead of replacing what you like, the best thing to do is say, okay, I'm going to eat this way, and I'm going to eat natural foods, things that come in their natural form. So walk through the fruit and vegetable aisle, and you look around and you go, oh, tomatoes, I can have that. Avocados, I can have that. Oh, look, lettuce, I can have that. Cabbage and broccoli and cauliflower, spinach. And so you're filling up your cart with all these stuff, and then you walk through and you get to the fish aisle and you go, oh, I'm gonna have some salmon. I'll have some I can put some crab meat on, and that'll be good. And I can have shrimp. I can make shrimp fajitas with my bell peppers and tomatoes, and that'll be great. And then you go into cheese. I can have that, and so you going through the aisles and saying, "Can I eat this? No. Okay, put it back. Okay, can I eat this? Yes." And then put that in, and that would be the best way to do this kind of diet, because then you're not restricting yourself, and people are going, well. Somebody asked, what if I don't want to lose weight?
Yeah.
Because some people are thin and they're type 2 diabetes, which I think they should test and make sure they're getting enough insulin, because they may be lacking insulin. They might have type 1.5 diabetes. So you have to test your insulin and C peptide levels, and then maybe even the insulin receptors and antibodies. So, but if you don't want to lose weight, then you don't have to lose weight on the ketogenic diet, for heaven's sakes. I did lose about 10 pounds. But you can eat as much as you want. There's not a limit to the amount of food you can eat. If you want to have a 10-ounce steak for breakfast, you can have a 10-ounce steak for breakfast. That's okay. And you're not going to lose weight by doing that.
I have a young son who's very into athletics, and he is wanting to gain lots of weight. And it's been difficult for him, which is funny because I've never had that problem. But he is eating a lot of protein, and mostly protein. I would say he's increased a lot, but he's eating a lot more meals, and he's working on trying to eat a lot healthier, real foods. And it can be difficult to do that, but it definitely can be done. How do you feel about extra or increasing protein for someone who's maybe doing the ketogenic diet? Or do you have any concerns with a lot of protein?
No, not really. Protein is actually, there's a limit. If you're eating protein all day long, that seems to be a problem, because you're turning on a gene called mTOR. And if you do that once a day in the morning, it's really good for building muscle, for building up your body, but especially muscle. So if you have more than 30 grams of protein for breakfast, that's really good. And then if you had no other protein for the rest of the day, that would be best. Because if you have the mTOR gene on all the time, that's where you start seeing people that get cancer easily, because mTOR increases your risk of cancer.
Interesting. Okay. All right. I want to see if we have some questions here. I want to dig into some of these. Okay. Sandra said, started taking Jardiance per the endocrinologist instructions recently, since A1C was tested at 9.5 on phase 1 since early October. Once I get down to 7 or 6 A1C, how long do I still have to take Jardiance?
I don't know. I don't think you need Jardiance. I don't think I would take that. It will lower your blood sugar, but one of the side effects that it has is insulin resistance, and you want to decrease insulin resistance ultimately. So I think it would be much better to do the phase 1 of the diabetes solution kit, and then your blood sugar will go down naturally from that, and you'll get less insulin resistance, and you'll have more insulin sensitivity as your blood sugar goes down, as opposed to the Jardiance, which gives you more insulin resistance as your blood sugar goes down.
Another thing I want to mention too, so if you guys go to the back of your diabetes solution kit, there's a lot of recipes back there. What I would really recommend if you're just getting started is to pick out a couple for breakfast that you like, a couple for lunch that you like, and a couple for your last meal, or maybe you're only eating 2 meals, whatever it is. Pick some out that you like, try them, get used to cooking them. that way you always have some meals kind of in your back pocket that you know you like, and then expand them. You can keep them really simple. I mean, maybe you are a steak eater and you just have a steak for lunch or whatever it is. But keep it simple in the beginning and expand as you start to need a little bit more variety. There's some really good things in this recipe book though. Cream cheese pancakes if you do cream cheese, barbecue chicken pizza with bacon. That sounds wonderful. But pot roast recipe, there's a beef stew recipe, taco casserole. There's a lot of really good things in here. So keep it simple, add on as you go. But just find some things that you really like or some things that you can always just have on hand in case you get into a pinch and you didn't really plan out your meal real well and you're real hungry. You don't want to get to that place where you don't have anything that you can eat quickly. So that'd just be my recommendation with the
Can, can,
diabetes 15 kit.
can I update what I said about Jardiance?
Okay, sure. Yeah.
It's sometimes used in people that have like congestive heart failure because
Mm.
it causes you to lose water with the glucose. So what it's doing is it's telling your kidneys to not absorb sugar anymore so that you pee out extra sugar. So the sugar goes out in your urine is the way it works. So that doesn't cause more insulin resistance. And so I just wanted to clarify this. It does have other side effects. People can get infections in their bladder more easily and infections in the perineal area more easily because of that. But you know, it does have side effects, and it's so much better to just not eat it, to just eat have a ketogenic diet and not eat the sugar is so much better than trying to eat it and then pee it out.
Mm.
It's just not the best way to do it.
Okay. Beverly said, recent results, total cholesterol 245, HDL 96, LDL 131. Comments.
145, 36, 91. Those are great numbers. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Um, yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Okay.
Okay, so if you were to talk to your cardiologist and you had a cholesterol of 245, the cardiologist would probably be pulling her hair out saying that you have to be on this drug to lower cholesterol. But if you look at the actual results of research, so the cardiologists are not going by research, they're going by drug company marketing. The research shows that the optimum level of cholesterol is between 200 and between 210 and 250. That's the perfect level. So you are between 210 and 250. So you have an optimum level of cholesterol. HDL 96 is awesome. And the LDL 131 doesn't matter. That's not even a measured number anyway, and has no relationship to heart disease or vascular disease in any way. And don't let anybody tell you differently, because that's what the research shows. So that's kind of those are my comments on the cholesterol thing.
Someone had asked about using Amazon to purchase our products. And you have to get them from us on Amazon. There are a lot of people that sell bad things on Amazon. And so I recommend always just purchasing them from us. We usually have some sort of bundle or something that's going on. If you see that in an email from us, I recommend that. Any thoughts, Dr. Saunders?
Yes, I have thoughts, because I've had patients call me and go, "How come the pills that I ordered that you know the it was synochroma, they were brown before, now they're white. Why are they white?" And so I called Kevin, and Kevin said, "Those are not ours. We didn't make those. That's a fake." And Amazon sells a lot of fakes. He says we play whack-a-mole with the fakes. We pop one down and one pops up somewhere else. We pop that down and it pops up somewhere else. So yeah, I wouldn't trust Amazon with anything, because you don't know what you're getting from Amazon. It could be melamine in there. You could be getting microplastics. And that's the pills you're taking are just microplastics and nothing else.
So Joe did say if you buy from Amazon, you have to make sure you get it from Barton Nutrition and not any other seller. So you really have to be paying attention to who you're buying from.
Oh, okay.
Um, there are some benefits of Amazon. There's a subscribe and save. You can buy single bottles and get them a little quicker, so there are some easier things that happen on Amazon. Just make sure you're getting it from Barton Nutrition and not, even if it says like natural supplements is the seller, that's not good. Okay. So make sure you're looking for that. Okay. Another question here from David. Where are you taking the class on neuroscience?
Oh, from Peterson Academy. It's yeah, Peterson Academy. You just go petersonacademy.com and you sign up, you pay tuition, and they've got like a ton of courses on everything. I finished the neuroscience one. I'm doing cosmology now. It's amazing.
Okay. Let me see. John says Barton Products already did that one. Okay. Beverly, neuroplasticity is responsible for my success as a tutor of children with learning differences. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Beverly, that's awesome. I'm glad you do that. Because when they put he was talking about this in the course. He talks about education and how putting 30 kids in one classroom all getting the exact same information, or the way they're doing it now is like every teacher has to memorize their curriculum and give the exact same curriculum to every student in the whole school district or whatever at that level. It's like it's crazy because that's not how children learn. And so yeah, thank you, Beverly.
Okay. Let's see. I want to read this from KJ. Thanks to your products, I've had amazing initial results, especially Synachroma. Since I started in November, my BGL's blood glucose levels have come down from the low 200s as a high, 100s to 119 to 124 in the morning and 100 to 110 in the evening. They've been coming down gradually over the past month. However, my hemoglobin A1C is still at 6.7, which my doctor says is great. But according to my coach, my goal is under 5.7. Does hemoglobin A1C typically lag behind blood glucose levels, and how long? And at some point, can I stop taking metformin and start adding some foods like potatoes and rice back into my diet?
Okay, great. Thank you for asking this question, because it's a great question. Number one, the synachroma may help people who have especially deficiencies in one or more of the nutrients that are in there, and that's primarily what it's for. The hemoglobin A1C is not lagging behind. Yes, it does lag behind because it's a 3-month average, but your average is still an average, and so if your morning blood glucose is lower, that means your postprandial after eating could be even higher. So the general average is still about the same. So if you've gone for more than 3 months, then and your hemoglobin A1C is the same, that means your blood sugar hasn't really changed very much. So it would seem to me that the next thing you could do is start the phase 1 of the program and actually do the ketogenic diet, measure your ketones, make sure you're burning fat for energy. And if you're not burning fat for energy, then lower to even 10 grams of carbohydrates a day. And so take out of your mind the idea of, I'm going to go back to potatoes and rice. You have to look at it in terms of, this is where I am right now, this is where I want to be, and this is how I'm going to get there. And the how I'm going to get there is that's what we wrote the book for.
All right. I'm going to copy this and send this to our team. There we go. All right, next question. Anonymous says, I'm doing phase 1 and my blood sugars are anywhere between 86 to 98. Occasionally below 110 if I'm tired and I cannot get back to sleep. For some reason, when I decide to do the 3-day fast, when I get hungry, I have skipped heartbeats, which I correct with a cough. And I also have blurred vision. I'm pre-diabetic with Hashimoto's. Should I avoid 3-day fasting?
I don't know why you would avoid 3-day fasting. Your blood sugar is pretty good. 70 to 90 is perfectly normal. That's the optimum range. And you're 86 to 98. occasionally to 110. That's not bad. But I don't, the skip beats, I don't know why that is, and I don't know what it is. So maybe finding out what that is. But the one thing about fasting is everything is repairing and being fixed while you're fasting. And a 3-day fast is the optimum. That's where you get the most, because it takes 2 days before you start getting autophagy, where you start taking out all the bad proteins, the dead cells, the cancer cells. All that starts getting eaten up after about 2 days. And so you do the 3 days to optimize that autophagy. Yeah, and that should help your Hashimoto's too. Your Hashimoto's thyroid antibodies should go down, and your insulin sensitivity should go up. So I think you should do the 3-day fast. Okay. And then find out why your heart has arrhythmias and what it is. So if you're getting arrhythmias and you do an EKG, or if you go to the doctor and get a monitor, they can just tape a monitor onto your chest and it'll record arrhythmias and stuff that you can find out what's going on.
Okay. Julia said, you said fat causes insulin resistance. Isn't the keto diet primarily protein and fat?
Yeah, it's been there's like research going back and forth on what's the best way to do this. And there's one group of people that, if you've ever seen the book Mastering Diabetes, it is a no-fat diet. If you've ever looked at Dean Ornish's program, is a no-fat diet, and they're for diabetes too. And then there's another one, the McDougall diet. If you go on their website, they say, hey, we cure diabetes by eating sugar and no fat. Here's what happens. You got to cut out one of them. You got to either take the fat out or take the sugar out. And we've chosen to take the sugar out because it's kind of easier to do a ketogenic diet than to do a no-fat diet. I don't know. Some people like the no-fat diet. And I've actually had patients that have diabetes that I've recommended, maybe you should be doing the Mastering Diabetes program and get off all fat and just eat sugar. So they're eating fruits and vegetables and beans and rice and corn, all this, glucose-laden stuff. And they do just fine because they eat no fat at all. And so they don't have insulin resistance. So I don't know.
Okay. Anonymous said, everything that tastes good is bad for you. Everything that tastes bad is good for you.
Got it. So no, yeah, like ice cream, right? Or cereal. In the 1950s, a man named Jack LaLanne, that's way before your time. Jack LaLanne was one of the most awesome people. He's way ahead of his time. He had a TV show, and it was an exercise show, but it was generally a health show. And he would get on there and he would say, don't eat sugar. Then he would say, if it tastes good, spit it out.
I will say too, your taste buds get used to. My son and I just had this conversation. He's like, why does all the stuff that's good for you taste so bad? And I said, when you eat a lot of good stuff will start to taste good. It's almost like a false good taste from the fake stuff. Just like everything in life, the false is never as good as the real stuff. When you eat clean and you have fruit for the first time, you will be blown away at how good it tastes.
Yeah.
So it just takes a while, I feel like, to get your taste buds back to reality.
Yeah.
Good question. This comes up a lot. Richard said, he's asking, how healthy is unsweetened oatmeal? We have a lot of people that want to eat oatmeal.
Yeah. We're always told that oatmeal is really good for you. Well, oatmeal has a really good type of fiber in it. And it's often used, people that have like chronic constipation, they'll eat oatmeal and it's really good for them. And it helps the stomach, calms things. So there's a lot of good about oatmeal. But if you have type 2 and you're eating unsweetened oatmeal, you have to count the carbs. So you get, I don't know how many. You get a few grams, I don't know, 100 grams of oatmeal is all you're going to be able to eat. if you're on phase one of the program. So just look at it that way. That yeah, oatmeal's great, except for if you want to be insulin sensitive, then it's a good idea to avoid it.
Okay, next question. I've heard that if carbs such as pasta, potatoes, rice, etc., is stored in the fridge overnight, it lowers the carb content. What is your take on that?
Okay, good question. Okay. Yeah, you can actually look this up. I did look it up at one point. I don't recall the details of it. But it's called resistant starch. And so you cook your pasta, you cook your rice, you put it in the refrigerator and at least overnight or a day or two or whatever. And then you warm it up and eat it, and the starch becomes fiber when it's cooled. So because it's cooled in the refrigerator, it becomes a fiber and not a starch. And you can look up how much of it is, but I was kind of surprised to find out it wasn't that much. It was still enough carbs to raise your blood sugar, and you still didn't. I still avoided it. I didn't eat it on the phase one of the program.
Okay. Michelle said, what if you buy a package of frozen vegetables? Is that considered processed? My fiance eats mom's meals. They have a ton of ingredients, but are like homemade. What do you think?
I don't know about mom's meals, but the frozen vegetables, they're fine. Yes, they're processed, but it's called minimal processing. So there's these levels that the food science has of how much processing there is. If it's just cut and frozen, then it's minimally processed, and then there's the maximally processed, which is ready to eat, and that's where the mom's meals comes in. So the maximally processed food, I don't know what they put in it. Some are pretty good where they have natural ingredients. I was in Trader Joe's last night, and I wanted to get some bread, and so I looked at all the bread, and I look over enriched flour with enriched flour. Look at all those, but they had one that was a cracked wheat bread that was actually really good. List of ingredients is very small, and it's all like grains and nuts and stuff, and then it had yeast. And it had some honey in it, but it didn't have any like all those the chemical stuff that they had in it. So I bought that one. Usually I don't. Usually I buy the sourdough. They didn't have any. The sourdough only has 4 ingredients. It's flour, water, salt. Flour, water, salt. No, that's all. 3 ingredients. Yeah. Flour, water, salt. Yeah.
Good question. Rose says, are there any protein powders that are good for making smoothies?
Okay, Rose. No. No. Don't use protein powders. Just eat protein. It's so much better to get the whole protein. Now, if you don't digest protein and you need a protein powder, I have put people often who have like knee problems, joint problems. I've put them on collagen protein powders. That's okay. But yeah, it's better to eat protein. Protein powders, most of the time, they have sweeteners in them and stuff like that. They do make some just pure protein with nothing in it powder. I have some of that at home, and that's okay.
I wonder if Paleo Valley, if their unflavored collagen protein one might be a one. You could look at that one.
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure. I haven't looked at the ingredients, but I feel like it might be a good one. So
yeah, most of the collagen peptides are unflavored, and that's a good place to start.
Okay. Let's see. Beverly says the body converts 58% of protein into glucose, but in that case, the conversion is very slow. So a very small amount of glucose drip slowly into your blood. And of course, you need the amino acids and other components. So that's okay. I took all sugar and drastic amounts of starch out of my diet when I was 31 and pregnant. It erased the gestational diabetes. And I was fine until the age of 81 when I slipped and started eating ice cream to comfort me with orthopedic pains. Got pre-diabetes. Back to ketogenic diet.
Oh, wow, Beverly. What a story. That's a great story. I hope you share that with everybody too.
Yeah,
That's
that's good.
awesome.
David said, I take a lot of AI and brain type of classes. Awesome. Julia, too much protein can increase chances of cancer. Please advise on how much protein to eat. If you are on keto and only eat 30 grams at breakfast, what are you eating the rest of the day? I can only eat a few berries without spiking. Veggies and carbs add up fast. I
Yeah.
don't think you are limited to 30 grams per day. I mean, you could eat more than that, but what do you think?
Oh yeah. No, it just takes a minimum of 30 grams of protein in order to induce that mTOR gene so that you can start building muscle and all of that. Yeah, you could eat 100 grams at breakfast if you want. That's not a problem. And then if you eat some protein throughout the day, that's okay. But a lot of people, they eat a very high protein meal at night. Like they'll have a big steak at night. And that's not the best way to go. The best way to go is actually to move the protein to the morning when you're still in the anabolic phase. You can actually build that. And there have been several studies, the China study, for example, and other studies that sort of indicate that people who are on high protein diets tend to get cancer more easily, and they don't live as long. And the shutting off the mTOR gene is something that everybody's looking into. How do you shut off the mTOR gene? And some people are even taking rapamycin. The mTOR is the mechanistic target of rapamycin, mTOR, and the R is rapamycin that shuts down the mTOR gene, which helps longevity. So every time you eat high amounts of protein, more than 30 grams, then you turn on that gene. And so that's where that high protein diet isn't as good. So if you look at the longevity experts, the people that have been studying this for a long time and go, okay, what is it really that where this is? It seems like when you're young, like prior to age 50, that it's okay to have a higher protein diet. After age, I mean, you should have a lower protein diet, and then after age 50, you actually need more protein. So having a higher protein diet as you over age 50. So that's kind of the way it works.
All right. Michelle said, is Orgain a starch, which is made of vegetables and is protein, but has stevia, and is quinoa a starch?
Okay, quinoa does have some starch in it. It's got a lot of protein. I think there's more protein than starch. I looked at it once a while back. Yes, Orgain is also a starch, but it has a lot of fiber in it, and protein. And the stevia is a problem because that makes you insulin resistant. So leave out any sweeteners. In fact, if something tastes sweet, spit it out. That's a really good thing for people who have type 2 diabetes. Just anything that tastes sweet, spit it out.
Okay. Christine said, I gave in last year, went on a baby dose of rosuvastatin. Of course, numbers improved, but I was doing a lot of other things to make them better too. Is it okay to just stop the statin on my own and then test myself 3 months out? Cardiologist also has me on metoprolol. He asked me to now take a full tab due to some recent reports of dizzy, palpitations, etc. Confusing on what to pay attention to the most.
Okay, so first question is I can't advise you about whether you should take a medicine or not. Let me just give you some general information. Statins are not helpful for heart disease. So they don't reverse heart disease. They don't stop it from happening. I had someone today who was on a statin for 20 years and his heart disease was getting worse and worse and worse, because that wasn't his issue. His problem was that he had high cortisol. He had a genetic problem that high cortisol. So deal with the problem. And if your cholesterol is 360 and you need a statin, then do the statin and then find out whatever else you need. But deal with whatever your issue is. So you may need more testing to find out why. And metoprolol is something that just slows down your heart rate. That's all it does. It does kind of relax the heart and prevents it from contracting hard. So it does lower the blood pressure somewhat, but that's not really good for the heart long term. That's fine for short term, but long term it makes the heart weak and causes you to get congestive heart failure. So I think finding out why the dizziness, why the palpitations, find out why. That's what to pay attention to. Just, the medications are unnecessary. It might be necessary until you find out why. Once you find out why, then you can deal with them. And if the medications are required to deal with them, then that's the way you deal with it.
Okay. Final question, because there's a few questions surrounding this. Someone's asking if you're saying stevia is bad. Someone else is asking about like a diet where you eat papayas for a while and it will lower your blood sugar. Talk about sweet things and why you do not like sweet things, whether it's monk fruits. Someone's going to ask me, what about honey? What about monk fruit? What about anything that tastes sweet?
Yeah, all of them. Honey, monk fruit. Monk fruit is a alcohol sugar that it's like grape, right? It tastes really good. It tastes really sweet. But the problems with sweet things is you're training your body as you taste the sweet, it goes into your mouth, your pancreas is preparing to make a bunch of insulin. And so that insulin is making you more insulin resistant. So whenever they do studies on people where they compare sugar to artificial sweeteners, it makes their diabetes worse. It makes them gain weight faster than the natural sugar. Well, why should that be? Because the artificial sweeteners are up to 300 times sweeter than sugar. They're stimulating those sweet receptors, and you have some in your intestines too that have sweet receptors that tell your body to put out more insulin. So more insulin means more fat and more insulin resistance, and that's the thing you want to avoid. So we focus on sugar because it's easy to measure, but the problem is insulin resistance. It's not sugar. People can have high blood sugar. I had someone for 300, their blood sugar was 300 for years. No issues at all. No problems at all. No heart disease, no vascular disease, no neuropathy, nothing. It's not the sugar. It's insulin resistance. That's the problem.
Love it. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Saunders. Go bless your patients today. We'll see you tomorrow on the Home Cures That Work webinar.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, you guys, be sure to check out bartonwebinar.com for more information. You'll find links to our past webinars. We're recording all of these. And so you'll find those on YouTube. And we also, if this is your first time, we're so excited that you were able to join us. Sorry about my video quality. It'll improve. I got to switch computers. But we will be here tomorrow for the Home Cures That Work webinar. That's Thursdays at noon. If you haven't registered for that, go do that at bartonwebinar.com. And you'll find a lot of information there, including products. If there's something that you're interested in, use code webinar25 to save 25%. That's one word. Okay. Thanks for hanging out with us today, asking these great questions. I know we didn't get through all of them, but come back next week. We'll do the same thing. Ask your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get as many answered as possible. Thank you all. Have a good week.